what, and I cannot stress this enough, the ew. That was the point my brain exploded beyond all repair. Hey guys, and welcome to another brand new book discussion video. Today I am going to be discussing Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. You guys know I completely love the Bone season. It is one of my favourite series and I will read pretty much anything Samantha writes, but you know, badass female ladies and dragons, what's not to love? This is 800 pages. It is scary. It is intimidating, but it is split into 6 different parts. So to my mind, it was kind of like 6 little books, if that makes sense. Some parts are longer than others, all of them flow on continuously from each other, but I could really picture each of the parts being published as a separate book or a couple of them put together. So I feel like if you approach this book as 6 mini books in one, then it's easier and less intimidating, if you get what I'm saying. Bear in mind though that if you're used to reading YA fantasy, this is going to seem a bit slower to you. But despite how steady the pace is in the beginning as things are building up, there is something compelling that keeps you reading. I kid you not, I binged 200 pages of this in one go, twice. I'm going to put it down right there because it's seriously going to hurt my arm if I hold it up for the entirety of this video because, ow, that already hurt. Anyway, I'm weak, okay? I'm weak. It's gonna live there. So the basic gist of Priory is that 1,000 years ago there was this evil dragon called the Nameless One, and he and his minions made life a misery for humans. They had to feed someone to the Nameless One every month and they did it by drawing lots. But they finally managed to lock him away in the abyss, and the Berethnic bloodline is allegedly what is keeping him bound. Which is why it's a bit of a big deal that Sabran doesn't have an heir and is not even married, and is why Ede is sent from the Priory to secretly guard her and protect her and keep her alive. But we have the Nameless One's minions who are stirring and seem pretty confident that after 1,000 years he is about to make his big comeback. Meanwhile we have Tane, who is about to achieve her dreams of becoming a dragon rider if no one finds out about the crime she committed. Priory is all about our characters both from the East and the West and how they come together to fight against the stirring evil. East and West have been divided for a very long time because of their opinions on dragons. The West obviously loathes and fears dragons because of their history with the Nameless One, whereas the East reveres them as gods. There is magic, battles, pirates, mystery, as well as a lot of tension, quests, and a load of dragons. Honestly, I really do not have a bad thing to say about this book, so let's get straight on with the discussion. Right from the start we have intrigue and plotting, and I mean seriously right from the first page. We've got tension and danger and intrigue and plotting, and most importantly, dragons. I was living for it and I was immediately pulled in because I was so curious about so many different things just from one POV. During the first part of the book we are swiftly introduced to the main characters, starting off with Tane, but it's obvious right from the start and right from the first few chapters that our cast is not only super interesting with different layers to them, but that they're also super diverse too. One of the things that I was fascinated with most throughout the entire book was the history of the world. It's really rich and it's really detailed, and the natural world building paired with how atmospheric and vivid it was really lets the world pull you in. Samantha doesn't overwhelm you with information, and with world building it's all seamlessly woven into the narrative. We also have 2 different versions of the history of the Nameless One and what happened and what went down with it and who defeated him depending on where you're from, which was intriguing because it conjured loads of questions and created a lot more mystery, and I really wanted to know what this dual history was and which one was the truth. I was just so curious about the history of the world throughout the entire book and I could not get enough of it. I literally lived for when one of the characters would tell one of the legends or when they'd talk about something that had happened, and I just wanted to know more and more about it and I couldn't get enough of it. And I really love the fact that unlike a lot of high fantasy books that I've read and struggled with, instead of info dumping a load of world building on you at the beginning of the book or throughout certain parts, it was just smoothly slotted in via legend telling and characters talking, and there were no parts that were just full of world building and were kind of a struggle to get through. One of the other things that kept me reading and made the book interesting to me was the political climate that we find our characters in. Like I said, the people of the West completely hate the people of the East because they worship dragons and they work with them, whereas the West refers to dragons as worms and completely and utterly hates them, which is, you know, kind of understandable, but it's a conflict that has to be overcome in order for everyone to work together. The West are very into their virtues. In actual fact, they are called virtuedom. That society is quite rigid and stiff, and for some reason my mind went to the Tudor time period because of all of the ruffs and stuff, but I'm not sure if that's the actual kind of inspiration and time period that Samantha went with. We also have everything that's going on with Sabran because she needs to have an heir and she needs to marry in order to do so, and there is a lot of scheming going on at court in order to make that happen, along with, you know, assassins trying to kill her. Along with the politics of the West, we also obviously get the politics of the East with the unceasing Emperor and the Dragon Riders, as they are all very against outsiders in order to protect themselves from a draconic plague. We just have a lot of politics, okay, and because you see the politics of the different places, there is a lot to be intrigued by and a lot that hooks you in and keeps you reading. On the writing front, I know the book is scary because of the page count, you guys, but Samantha's writing draws you in, and as you might have already surmised just from what I've said so far, there is a lot to intrigue you and keep you reading. The prose is absolutely saturated with rich lore and history, with bits and pieces woven into the narrative as we go along and leaving you wanting to know more. Samantha paints a vivid and cinematic picture, and you can draw a clear mental image as you read. I had two very different aesthetics for East and West, and very different mental images of what the two places look like, and I had a certain vibe from each place as well, just from Samantha's writing. I also really loved how Samantha wove in different little connections here and there, connecting all of our characters and all of their narratives together. It was so cleverly done. Like Tane with Trium right at the start, or someone mentioning that they've seen someone else or a story, or even Sabran's dream and the story of it and how it came into play in part 3. To give you guys an example, let's take the Game of Thrones series. So Dance of Dragons is like 1k pages, and the version of it I have is split into 2 parts. It took me forever to get through that damn book because I was bored out of my freaking mind. I had to force myself to read 50 pages a day just to get through it, alongside reading something else. But the last 500, 600 pages of Dance of Dragons, literally nothing happened. I was reading it like, why are there so many pages when nothing is happening? There was nothing that interested me, and I was completely not bothered by anything at all. Nothing hooked me in. But Priory, on the other hand, yes, it's steady paced, but there is so much to keep you reading and to keep you interested, and the writing pulls you in and makes it super hard to put down. I am seriously not exaggerating when I tell you guys that on 2 different occasions I binge read 200 pages like they were nothing. Another thing about the writing actually is that I do feel like there were some clever parallels between some of the characters. Like you have Ede and Tane both being described as ghosts at certain points but for different reasons. And then there's the little connections and coincidences like Ede leaving the rose behind Sabran's pillow and the rose in the Melancholy King story. Plot-wise, there is so much to keep you occupied, and it kept moving forward and linking things in and bringing characters together. There are threads weaving through each point of view with little connections as the bigger picture starts to emerge and the pieces start to come together. Samantha seriously plays the long game with this one. Like, you hear about something or someone at the beginning of the book, and then they come into play later on in the book as more things are slotted together, and I was literally, the amount of times that happened and I was like, oh my god, I remember that person from this part or this part, and like, oh my god, that's why they were mentioned. It's like she started to stitch with the various different characters and threads in the first couple of parts, and then she starts to like pull on the thread and pull everything together, like that really satisfying video of the stitching that's been circling on Twitter. I really have to say that it is built up excellently with the way we get to grips with everything at the beginning and who everyone is and where everyone is and what happened in the past, and characters then being manoeuvred into the places they need to be or into the headspace that they need to be in, and then we build up more and more with things slowly coming together and characters slowly meeting up and you kind of figuring out who has to do what, who has to go where, and more threads being woven in with more elements being brought in and characters getting closer and closer and teaming up before leading us into the most epic finale ever with this explosive battle on the high seas. I was living, I swear to you, I was living. Like, I was losing my damn mind throughout the final parts of this book because people started to team up. There were some shocking plot twists, and I just literally just seeing everything come together and seeing how Samantha had laid the pieces out at the beginning and how everything came together, and I was just like, oh my god. Obviously this is a really huge book, there is a lot going on, there are a lot of threads, but it is so well wrapped up at the end. I feel like it's all brought to a very satisfying conclusion, even if I was still hungry for more of the world and the characters and didn't quite want to leave them. Priory is an absolute freaking masterpiece, and I was in awe, quite frankly, as I was reading. I obviously love the dragons, and they were one part of this that I was super excited for, but I wasn't entirely sure what to expect, although that's kind of a lie actually. I guess I was expecting like the standard kind of dragon, like Game of Thrones dragons. But much to my surprise, we got 2 different kinds of dragons in this book, and I just love how Samantha was like, oh, I pick one type of dragon when I can have them all, and I have literally 0 arguments with that. In the most basic terms, we have the Nameless Ones and the High Westerns and the Wyverns and the various different creatures that come under them. They are the fire breathers. They are the ones that the West call the worms. Then in the East we have the Eastern dragons who swim through the water, and their powers reflect that. I freaking loved learning the intricacies of the 2 different types of dragons living. I just love dragons, okay? I just love dragons. Characters. As you can imagine, this book has a seriously heavy cast list, and there is such a brilliant cast of interesting and diverse characters, both on the main cast and on the supporting cast. One of my absolute favourite characters was Kit. I loved Kit, okay? He was snarktacular, and he immediately became my favourite. Literally within seconds of seeing him on the page. I will just forever be devastated that we did not get to see more of Kit, to be honest. Sabren, I wasn't sure what to make of at first because she wasn't really what I was expecting. She was a lot colder than I was expecting her to be, and she really is quite hate-filled toward the East in the beginning, but she does come a long way throughout the course of the book, and I liked her character arc. Her views adapted and they changed, and she became a much stronger person and character by the end of the book. The more we got to know her and the more we read about her throughout the book, the more I started to like her, and I really did feel a huge sense of empathy towards her more than once. Estina and Gian, I freaking love them. Okay, actually no, here's a gripe. My gripe with this book: I wish we had seen way more of Estina and Gian than we actually did, and I would kill for a spin-off book about them and the crew. Along with the likeable characters, there's the not so likeable characters, like, you know, Trude. Oh Trude, you poor deluded little fool. Kinda wanted to smack her on, to be honest, but even I ended up feeling bad for her by the end. Like, I got where she was coming from, but she just went about handling it completely wrong. Tarosa, literally, can I hit him? I was genuinely thankful that we didn't see more of him than we actually did, because I was expecting to have to put up with his arse for like 800 pages, and I was like, I don't know if I can do it. I need to punch him, he needs to be punched. But then, you know, we didn't see him after a certain point and it was all good. So on to our 4 main points of view throughout the book. They are the narratives that we have that tell the story. We see everything through their eyes. They are Tane, Loth, Niclas and Ede. First up, I want to talk about Tane. She is in the East, and her narrative mostly read like an action fantasy. She is our first badass lady of the book, and she provides a lot of action and tension as she undergoes the trials to become a dragon rider, and it is thanks to her that we get up close and personal with the Eastern dragons. She is absolutely determined to achieve her dream, and no matter what she has to do. I loved the scenes with her and her dragon and how they communicated, and I loved the bond between the 2 of them. But I do kind of feel like Tane had to be kicked down a bit, no matter how much I wanted her to get away with everything, in order to build herself back up and come out fighting. But I am kind of sad that we didn't get more of her point of view, to be honest. Our next point of view is Niclas. He is also in the East, and his point of view gives us the air of an adventure and huge quest vibes. Honestly, I kind of hated him from the moment he screwed over Sousa to protect that little idiot Trude. I was thinking that I might end up actually liking him at some point, but I was really rooting for Tane, as prickly as she was, and I did not appreciate him trying to ruin her freaking life. He was just a character I didn't like, and I was waiting for him to do something that would make me like him, or to grow to like him. But then he went after Nyamathan to get a dragon scale and some blood, even though he said he didn't need it. Nah mate, this ain't it. You're cancelled, and I hope you get eaten by the Nameless One. I genuinely loved Tane's comments about him though. She was like, he keeps coming back like a weed, he's here to do us ill for his own gain. She ain't wrong. To be fair to him, he does somewhat redeem himself, but it was a bit too little too late, to be honest. No. In this house we don't like dragon torturers. Ede is our narrative in the West. Her POV is frequently about political and court intrigue with a splash of magic, and it also has some assassin vibes. Ede is to do with the Priory. She has magic. She is keeping the fact that she has magic secret because that will not go down well in Virtudom, and she is secretly guarding and protecting Sabren from the assassins that are coming for her. Ede is a badass, she is strong, and she actually takes us on quite a journey because we get to see the West with her and the palace, but she also takes us to the Priory with her as well. And I really admired her refusal to kind of leave Virtudom to fend for itself against the Nameless One and his minions. And she just kicked all kinds of ass, and I completely loved her. I think she was my favourite, or she was tied for favourite with Tane. Tane kind of took more to warm up to, whereas I liked Ede straight away. Loth is our second point of view from the West, and we kind of have spy and mission vibes from him for the most part. Poor old Loth was BFFs with Queen Sabran, but obviously she's unmarried. Some rumours circulated and he got sent off essentially to die. Poor old Loth has a bit of a crisis of faith multiple times, as throughout the book he's kind of presented with various different things that shake his faith and his beliefs. He holds fast, but I did find it really interesting to have a character who was so invested in their religion struggling with the fact that it might not be all that it seemed. He is another one of the characters that comes quite far throughout the books, as he is one of the first to speak out about working with the East and to stop calling other religions heresy. And you know, he actually becomes quite adventurous on his travels. I was quite proud of him by the end of the book. As for the point of view changes, they were excellently timed. They left me wanting more, and they allowed you to see what was going on in multiple different places at once and to understand these 4 different characters and their different motivations and why they were doing what they were doing, and to see how they will come together. We have lots of action, we have court intrigue, we have political intrigue. The dialogue was excellent, we had rich and vivid prose, we had multiple powerful female characters and characters that had multiple different layers to them. I loved all of the relationships between the characters, both platonic and otherwise, but I particularly loved the female friendships that were in the book. Margaret and Ede in particular, it was just really nice to see good, strong, solid female friendships for once. Plus I did really like the bonding between Ede and Tane at one point as they had to work together, and I would so have killed to see more of that. I just need a book all about their team ups. Our badass ladies overcome a hell of a lot and come together and work together to defeat the evil. And Loth and Niclas helped a little bit. One of the things that I loved most about this book wasn't just that it was so intricate, but I really loved that I could see things coming together on the page, particularly towards the end. And it had me shrieking so many times every time I saw something from earlier in the book and how it fit in towards the end, and just seeing characters finally coming together and teaming up, and I just, oh my god. It was epic. We also have a female-female romance, and I lived for it, and it was so brilliantly done, and it built up and developed alongside the plot so nicely, and I ship it so damn hard. I just got lost in this book every single time I picked it up, and I never struggled to get to grips with anything or to understand anything, and I never got confused. I was never bogged down in too much information and too much info dumping and too much description. Plus Samantha manages to weave in all of these threads and all of these characters and all of these elements and bring it to such a satisfying close in just the one book. She takes fantasy elements that we've seen time and time again, but she makes them better and she redefines them. This is just genuinely a masterpiece of a book, okay? It is seriously such a brilliant read, and I'm gonna need for you guys to check it out. It is epic fantasy at its freaking finest. I loved the romance between Sabran and Ede so damn much, okay? They were just such a great pair, okay? And I just really loved how it built up with Ede kind of getting closer to Sabran and then bonding and trusting each other. I loved how it gradually developed, and I loved how Ede would freaking tell her how it is, whether she wanted to hear it or not. She would not bullshit her. I ship it. Yet another thing that I loved about this book was that there were so many plot twists that I did not see coming. Like Kit, for example. My favourite, who I loved instantly. I loved him from the moment that we met him, and I was so excited for 800 pages of him and his snark. And then Samantha killed him off before the end of part 1. Why? Why? Why did that have to happen? I don't understand. Why? Speaking of character deaths, Albrecht. What the fuck? I did not see that coming. I was reading and I was just like, no freaking way. He can't be. No. What? I honestly wanted to throttle Trude myself, even if she did have her plan taken over and it wasn't what she intended. I was completely and utterly stunned at that part. But that does not compare to how freaking stunned I was when it was revealed who the hell the freaking cupbearer was. I spent so long wondering who it was and I had no idea. This is probably because I am dumb and I have a goldfish brain and I missed every single clue and sign out there as I was merrily losing my shit over the dragons, and I shrieked when Ede finally revealed who it was. I was like, you have got to be kidding me. How did I not? Why? I should have figured out that it was Crest, but I had a lot to process, okay? Her dislike for Albrecht and the pairing of Albrecht and Sabran should have been a red flag, but what should have been more of a red flag was the whole comment about her moulding Sabran into the person she liked and not liking how Sabran was going at a certain point. Big red flags. Should have realised. My bad. Dragons distracted me. I was also surprised yet pleased that Rosalind was actually loyal to Sabran until the end, because I kind of thought that she was going to have something shady going on. But I have to say it really made a really nice change from the usual backstabbing friends since childhood thing. I loved how I could see all of the pieces coming together, and then Caliber stealing Galleon from Golden Birch, which is Loth's family home in case you're wondering. Raising him as her son, but then loving him romantically. Ew. But it gets worse, you guys, because after everything went down with Cleolin and her rejecting him and dealing with the Nameless One herself, Caliber took on Cleolin's appearance and married him and had a kid with him who was Queen Sabran the first queen of Innis. What? And I cannot stress this enough. The fuck. Ew. I did, however, lose my damn mind for the millionth time this book. So many things made sense to me, like why Virtudon was so damn stuck on their version of events when it was clearly completely wrong. But immediately after that we have the huge mystery of what happened to Galleon solved, which was another huge shock. Then we had another reveal immediately after those two reveals. Let me live, Samantha. Let me live, or at least just let me take a damn breath. Caliber was the White Worm, the 6th High Western, working for the Nameless One. She was doing it in order to become the Flesh Queen and take Sabran's place because she looks exactly frickin' like her. That was the point my brain exploded beyond all repair. I had to close the book and have a quiet little sit down so I could process everything before I picked it up again. Ede being poisoned was another plot twist that I wasn't expecting, and again it had me losing my mind because I was not 100% convinced that Samantha wouldn't kill her. I was on the edge of my seat to see if she would live. Then we have Tane, who is a descendant of Naporo, and Naporo ate from the mulberry tree, which is the mulberry version of the orange tree at the Priory. Another reveal that I should have had an inkling of but completely passed me by. Although the more we learned about Naporo, the more I wanted her to have her own book because I became so curious about her. And the last spoilery thing I want to squeal over is Mita's death. I was so freaking satisfied with that, I can't lie. Although part of me is low-key annoyed that she was never unmasked as the killer of Ede's mother, I'm just choosing to believe that that little fact came out after Priory ended, because otherwise the super satisfying death becomes a little less satisfying. Super disappointed Niclas lived through everything. How? How? He should have died at least a couple of times throughout the book, yet he managed to keep on living. He's literally, like Tane said, a weed that will not die. Although I did kind of come round to him a little bit by the end of the book because he does redeem himself. Right at the last minute, might I add, he hung it out until right at the last minute. So that was my Priory of the Orange Tree discussion. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you thought down below if you have read it, but if you have anything spoilery, come and chat to me on Twitter. I will link all of my social media down below. For more similar content, feel free to hit that subscribe button. I post book discussions every Monday, and I'll see you guys next video.